Hi everybody, this is Jeremy from Legal Studies Advantage. In this Success Tips video, we'll discuss the topic of making class preparation easier. First of all, what should you expect in class? Well, you should expect questioning by your professor about the cases that you were assigned to read. You'll need to know things like, what were the facts of the case? In other words, what's the background and the story in the case? Second, you'll need to know the procedural history. In other words, who were the plaintiff and the defendant at trial? Which one appealed the case? What exactly is being appealed? In other words, what question of law is being raised in this appellate case? So, you'll be expected to identify what the appellant is disputing from the trial court's ruling. This is the issue of the case. The issue is an important thing that your professor will want you to be able to identify. The issue basically is the question that the appellate court is trying to answer. For a clue as to what to look for when you're reading cases and you're trying to identify the issue, look for the word whether, W-H-E-T-H-E-R. That word whether is typically utilized, not always, but is typically utilized by courts in their opinions as part of the statement of the question that they're trying to answer. For example, the question may be whether a defendant committed negligence, or if most of the elements of negligence have already been shown and only one of the elements is being disputed, the question may be whether that particular element was satisfied or met by the facts in this case. Finally, your law professor will expect you to identify the reasoning of the court. It's important to note that courts are free to borrow from the reasoning or arguments or presented by any of the parties to the appellate case. Typically, in class, you will quickly move through the facts, the procedural history, and identifying the issue, and most of the time will be spent discussing and arguing the reasoning of the court, and perhaps even making further arguments of your own in response to your professor's questions about the case. It's not unusual for professors to present hypothetical situations that were variations of what happened in the actual case that you're reading, and to question you to see what arguments you might be able to make for or against a given outcome in the hypothetical presented by your professor. Let's look now at this second question. How do you prepare for class? Well, first of all, of course, you need to read the case. Here at Legal Studies Advantage, we strongly suggest that you try to find a case brief too. It may come as no surprise that a lot of cases have already been briefed to some extent on Wikipedia or may be found simply by performing a Google search. There are a lot of them out there for free and they can be very helpful. Generally, case briefs probably are inadequate to replace reading the case itself, but it can save you a lot of preparation and time to utilize a case brief because it focuses your attention on the important points in the case, and it may allow you to rely on the work that others have already done. Sometimes there are commercial briefs, sometimes called canned briefs, that can provide a brief and overview of the cases in major textbooks. Whether or not to use commercial canned briefs is up to you, but you'll most likely be discouraged by your law school from utilizing them. We don't necessarily think that using them would be detrimental to your progress or learning in law school, but we leave that decision up to the individual students. In any case, we highly recommend that you read your cases, but it is very important to always remind yourself that you are most likely to be tested on the law, and that class preparation is not the same thing as exam preparation. Class preparation and participation teach you analytical and oral argument skills. However, class preparation and participation may not clearly teach you the law. One thing that is very different from your undergraduate experience is that the time that you spend preparing for class each day is not necessarily helping you to prepare for your final exams. That is a completely different kind of preparation and is the subject of another Success Tips video entitled How to Prepare for Law School Exams. So just to reiterate, I want to emphasize the point that preparing for class each day is not the same thing as preparing for the exam. And in fact, if you spend all of your available time trying to be exceptionally well prepared for class, there's a chance that when the finals come around at the end of the semester, you may not be as well prepared for the exam as you would like to be. So there's definitely a balance that must be learned in law school. While you want to show up and look prepared and look polished for your classmates and for your professor, it is important to realize that doing so may not actually translate into high performance on your final exams. Since that is the case, it is important not only to find a way to quickly and briefly learn the law, which is what Legal Studies Advantage is all about, but also to find a way to quickly move through your case law and class preparation each day. That's why we highly recommend that you try to find some external source of basic briefing to at least point you in the right direction. And then of course we encourage you to read your casebooks themselves so that you'll have a well-rounded and complete context for class discussions. That concludes this Success Tips video. We wish you much success and sincerely hope that this provides you with a very real legal studies advantage.